The failure to act with sufficient ambition to avert the climate catastrophe will be the greatest moral failure of our time.
Making changes takes courage, and if we don't change things, we won't have a future.
We need a president who respects science, who understands that the damage from climate change is already here.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. Change is coming, whether you like it or not.
Zero Carbon
East Talk. Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista, Series 2, The Manifesto. I'm Ian Collins. It's a Friday, which means we slide open the filing cabinet and whip out the green file, those crucial stories making the news on the environmental agenda. Our man with the pen torch, shining a light onto all of these issues, is the entrepreneur and environmentalist Dale Vince. Morning, Dale.
Morning, Ian. Happy Beltane, I should say. This week, not this day. But
Go
it's it's a pagan thing, and it kind of...
Could I be dancing or doing something?
All kinds of stuff, actually. But it's kind of a midpoint between the equinox and the summer solstice, and the time of the year at which the pagans reckon that winter hands over to summer. So I'm a big fan of that concept.
They better tell the weatherman this then, because something's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Bloody freezing out.
Well, that'll be a climate thing, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. Which we cover from time to time.
We do, don't we? Yeah. But the more I hear about the pagan beliefs and that kind of stuff, the more I like these guys. You know, I mean, I think they obviously had a lot of time to watch the seasons and the moon and stuff like that, and they had a real kind of connection to the world, really, that we lose in modern life. You know, with devices distracting us and our busyness and stuff like that. But it's quite impressive, actually, the extent to which they really understood the changing of the seasons and
indeed,
that kind of stuff.
Without a computer or even an abacus to work it all out, somehow managed to do this stuff. What's the difference between a pagan and a druid, or are they kind of?
Oh no, I think that's about the same thing, actually. Yeah. I mean, anybody interested, I'd check out the druids. I think they've got a website here in Britain, which is very modern of them, but there's some good stuff on there.
What's the one where you're allowed to dance around Stonehenge and tell the magistrate it was all in the name of your religion and therefore get away with it?
Oh, yeah, I think that happened a while ago. I don't think it happens anymore. So I was going to say the druids are the people that like to go to Stonehenge and celebrate the solstice and stuff like that.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's start off with a because obviously we in the great Venn diagram of this podcast, we often get into the world of football, which is your other area of life. And I wanted to start off with this because it taps into all sorts of areas. Toby on Facebook says, Dale, I'm a recovering gambler, almost 2 years clean. Thank you for taking a stand. I hope more of football follows. Just explain what that's about for those who don't know.
Yeah, we put out a press release this week with an anti-gambling charity. We put some boards up at our ground. Basically, it's about stopping the kind of rampant sponsorship of football by gambling. It's kind of out of control. If you watch a game on TV, every commercial break is topped and tailed with gambling adverts. About half Premier League teams have got gambling sponsors on their shirt. It flashes up on LED pitchside boards. You know, gambling has taken over football, and that is pushing gambling, onto a lot of people and onto a lot of young people. And online gambling, of course, is just so accessible on a smartphone. It's like it's like some kind of virus, I think. So we joined these people in calling for it to be banned. We know the government are thinking about that. Whether they will or not is another question. But we think there's a need to take gambling sponsorship out of football, out of sport, really.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because you remember Tracy Crouch, the Tory MP, who did quite a lot on kind of fixed odds betting machines and things like that, and she was widely applauded for work on that. So whether this is an area that she'll take up as well.
Yeah, who knows? And I've had loads of emails from people, mostly football fans, but not completely, just saying the same kind of thing as Toby, really, that, that they know somebody that's badly affected by gambling, for example, and offers of help as well from people, which is fabulous. I think there's a groundswell of feeling and opinion in football against this takeover of our sport by the gambling industry. But let's hope the government will do something about it. They were very boastful about having moved to stop the European Super League, which of course they didn't. They just jumped on the bandwagon and spoke out against it. But hopefully they'll do something material against.
And you're right. It's the smartphone thing, because I always remember this analogy. Because as a kid, I can remember the woman over the road from us. Her name was Sandra. She used to go to the bingo like twice a week, and it was always a conversation. that she had to leave the house, walk to the bus stop, get a bus from one part of where she lived to another part of the town, and then get another bus to go into town to get to the top rank bingo hall. And that was a walk in itself, and then do the whole thing again. It was kind of like a 2-hour round trip. So she could go and play bingo. No one thought anything of that. But the fact is, that's what she had to do. Now, the same woman would just literally have to pick up her phone and tap some numbers in with her credit card on tap.
Yeah. And, bingo is a social event anyway, isn't it? It's not the same as being sat
No, exactly. But,
in a room on your own on your smartphone.
absolutely. Yeah, you were there. It was, part of a kind of, if you like, a working class kind of social get together as much as anything else. And if you won a few quid, fantastic. But now that's all changed with big bright lights right on your phone screen. And that applies to gambling apps as well, of course, in other forms.
Yeah, and such a lot of sophistication as well in terms of enticing people to bet.
Lots of it, yeah. Big personalities, of course, involved in it. And then when they flash up those ads in between matches, they're kind of live, aren't they? They have the score on them already.
That's right. In-game betting and all this kind of stuff. And
all of that.
And save your acres or whatever it is. I want to do an impression of Ray Winston now because I think he's got a fabulous voice, and he obviously advertises for one of the
like
big
Ray needs the money. Come on, Ray, stick yourself up.
The world's favorite online betting company.
Exactly. I goes in the room with him then.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Let's move to this story. This is under the category of tell us something we didn't know. Cutting human sources of methane would be a quick win for the climate. This is a United Nations report, roughly halving emissions of greenhouse gases from human activity, often with the existing cost-effective solutions would reduce the future rise in global temperatures. So this tucks into the meat argument again.
Yeah, but as you say, that definitely falls into the category of what's new here?
Yeah.
I'm not quite getting it. Yeah, of course. Are they talking about simple things like changing of diet? I haven't read that story.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. That if the human element, and for the human element, of course, that's including cows and everything we're responsible for, and levels of methane have doubled since pre-industrial times. So I mean, that tells you a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then I'm with them, but it does seem to be one of those non-event headlines, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's funny because we read them out and we talk about them, and they come around again, and we talk about them, and everybody agrees who knows their turf on these things that something needs to be done, and then the story comes back again, and we talk about it again, and you think, well, what are we reading? What are other people who listen to this reading and seeing that the people that are political masters are not seeing?
It's probably a good sign that these stories keep coming back and you have more and more and different organizations basically endorsing the fundamental approach and the fundamental concepts that we need to cut emissions, we need to change our diet and that kind of stuff. And it's becoming more normal is probably what this is a sign of.
I think so. Here's another one. Homeowners should be allowed to create their own green electricity. And
homeowners, did you say?
Homeowners.
Okay. I heard homeowners.
Yeah, there's a lot of moaners out there, that's for sure. Should be allowed to create their own green electricity and sell it to their neighbour. This is the chair of the Environmental Committee. Does that make sense? I mean, on the face of it, anything wrong with that?
No, I think it could be massively complicated.
I was going to say, other than the complexities of doing it.
And of course, I mean, it would open up a whole new genre of neighbourly dispute, wouldn't it? But you didn't pay for that electricity you had yesterday.
You owe me 20 kilowatts, you slag. You can see this bubbling away. The Daily Mail would be on it. It wouldn't be a story about a bush that somehow infringed somebody's border. It would be about how much lecky you owe the person at number 77.
Yeah. So, yeah, no intrinsic harm, but I think it's a slightly bonkers idea, actually, personally.
Because you can sell it back to the grid, can't you? I mean, you have to sell it back to the grid, isn't that right?
Yeah, not the grid per se, but to an energy company.
Gotcha.
And for that, you need a smart meter. But I mean, they're taking over now in any event. And in a couple of years, we'll all have one. So it'll be kind of much easier to sell your surplus to the grid, inverted commas, which is how we all see it. But it's not actually the grid. But yeah.
Here's a question from Robin, who says, Dale, long-time Ecotricity customer. I've been listening to the podcast for about a year now. I also listen to Ian on Talk Radio as well as Mike Graham, his alternative view of the world. I've been eagerly awaiting your replacement for the feed-in tariff for my solar system. Is this coming? Tell us more. What does he mean by all of this, Dale?
Did he say our replacement or a replacement? I wasn't sure.
He says your replacement.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's a thing being kicked around called the smart export guarantee, I think it is, or smart export tariff, and it's like the feed-in tariff replacement, but from individual energy companies. So there's no kind of universal nature to it, other than that you get paid for what you export. The price will be very different from different suppliers. We are paying that to people with a smart meter. So it exists at our company. It's not a formal product yet, so you can't find it on our website and stuff like that. We're kind of just doing it by hand at the moment, while we're doing some big work to our systems, which are a bit more fundamental. So it's on our list of enhancements. Probably in about 6 months' time, we'll get to it, but it is available. And we are paying people the equivalent of the old feed-in tariff for exporting spare, usually solar energy.
What's the deal with smart meters? I mean, they're obviously, because I get like texts 700 times a week from the energy company saying, have a smart meter, have a smart meter. And then, I do debates on this, and people say, well, some of them are good, and there's the smart meters and the smart meters. The new version of works, the old one doesn't. What's the deal here? I mean, clearly this is going to be default at some point in everybody's house.
Yeah. So starting at the beginning, I would say that the energy industry is kind of unique in modern life, in that we have these meters that people need to read. It doesn't happen in telecoms, does it, for example? Yep. And I would say 9 out of 10 of all problems in the energy world for customers start with a meter and a meter reading. So the idea of automated meters that read themselves, that send data out automatically, is fantastic. It was rather rushed by our government a couple of years ago. They set a hideously ambitious rollout program for the whole nation, and they did it before the standard was even agreed for the meter. And then they started the clock running. And so there was a first version of the meter that was rushed into production, which wasn't proper and isn't as good as the second version, which is out now. And that's probably what's being referred to in the emails that you get. The second version, called SMETS 2, is the final version and is the good one. And a lot of people have got the old first version, SMETS 1, but they won't really lose anything from that. I think smart meters are fantastic. They're going to take away nearly all of the problems of the energy industry with meter readings and contested bills and all that kind of stuff, and do more than that, actually, because they'll give you data. They'll show you your consumption on a half-hourly level if you want it through the day, so that you can see when you use energy. They will do export for you as well if you have solar panels, so you'll be able to look at how your solar production matches your consumption and that kind of stuff. It'll enable us all to be very smart about how we use energy.
Here's my problem, and I think I'm the only person onto this. So when the energy company says, have one of our smart, they're desperate for me to have the smart meter. My question is simple. Okay, I'll take your smart meter. If you come round my house and remove that disgusted, twisted iron 1930s meter that currently sits in that cupboard that we've all got, that does nothing but breed unnamed species of spider and God knows what else under there. Take that away, I'll have your smart meter. Why do I have to keep the old meter?
Oh, I didn't know you did. That's news to me.
They don't remove it, surely?
I believe so. I assumed so.
I thought they just locked it off and left it there. That's quite a job, isn't it?
Maybe they do. That's a bit lazy, isn't it?
Very, yeah. Because it takes up space, And who designed those meters back in there? You wouldn't be giving any TED Talks, would you? If you were the designer of one of those things.
Maybe back in the day it was like cutting edge.
I go nuts trying to read it as well, because increasingly you're asked to read it yourself.
There are so many different types as well, and and the thing that winds me up about some of them is they've got a last digit after the decimal point, and usually it's in red, and it's irrelevant. It's not used, but it's on the meter, and so people think, well, I have to send that in, and
ignore that one and read it backwards. And if it's between two numbers, go for the lowest. And it's like, hang on, and I've lost. I'm dislocating my head trying to get underneath the little space to read the darn thing to start with.
It's awful. But with the smart meter, you'll be able to access your consumption through your smartphone. You'd be able to see in real time, if you want to, what your house is using. And it's an interesting thing to do. I had an energy monitor many years ago in my house when they first came out. And you find yourself, anyway, running around the house turning stuff off to see how low you can go.
It gives you that option, doesn't it? You can see it in real time. So I like it. Here's a great one. UK supermarket chain Co-op have announced big changes in its stores to appeal to its vegan and vegetarian customers. This, of course, is a growing base. The Co-op Group announced it's slashing prices of plant-based burgers and sausages to bring the prices more in line with real meat products. And this has been an issue, hasn't it, that lots of people have looked at vegetarian options and gone, actually, they're more expensive in some places.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite right. It's wrong because plant-based ingredients are naturally cheaper than animal part-based ingredients. And even though there are huge subsidies, about £2 billion a year into the intensive animal farming industry in Britain alone, despite those subsidies, plants are naturally cheaper. But a lot of companies have taken the opportunity to premium price this kind of new concept, inverted commas in around the new there, of just eating plants. And it is wrong. It does hold people back. And I think it was only a matter of time before somebody gave that a big old push. So I say fair play to the Co-op.
And also this, hydrogen, using hydrogen-based fuels for cars and home heating risks locking in a dependency on fossil fuels and failing to tackle the climate crisis. Now, it's interesting. This feeds into a debate we had on the radio this week about the future of cars and some controversy over, what the electric car carbon footprint currently is and why we haven't gone hydrogen bound when it comes to how we run our automotive systems.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's also, in a way, another example of the headline you read out earlier that fell into the category of, well, what's actually new here? Yeah. But it depends on where you are in terms of your understanding of things. So for me, the headline of that story was that electricity is more efficient than hydrogen in vehicles and homes. And I'm like, duh, but don't we know that? But of course, not everybody does know that. And, simply put, it takes twice as much energy to do a mile in a hydrogen car as it does in an electric car. There's a big efficiency issue. And there's an enormous lobby behind hydrogen. And guess who is funding it and part of it? It's the fossil fuel companies.
Get out of here. Seriously?
Oh, really? Yeah, because their infrastructure...
this morning.
No, it's truthful. Their infrastructure, I mean, they're visible. It suits the hydrogen economy, as they like to call it, perfectly. They have big refineries where they can make it. They ship the stuff in tankers, store it in tanks, and pump it into pipes and cars and stuff like that. I mean, it fits for them perfectly. It's a low carbon version of what they currently do. The only problem is it's inherently inefficient and it's going to make the job twice as hard as it needs to be. But there's an enormous push, and it does capture the attention of the media and of government as well, because it's a big expensive thing. They like to say that, oh, Germany's ahead of us. They're spending billions on hydrogen, for example. We're in danger of falling behind, which always gets politicians fired up. But it's a big mistake to pursue the hydrogen economy. Electric cars are here now, taking over the roads, super efficient. We're talking in the 90% in terms of fuel efficiency. Wow. An internal combustion engine car is about 15 to 20, and a hydrogen car would be just under 50. So, there's no contest in terms of efficiency.
Got it.
So this is one of those stories where I shrug and say, yep, know that. But of course, not enough people do get that yet.
Here's a couple to finish on, Dale. Alice on Twitter, good luck, Forest Green Rovers. We hope you get to the playoffs. What's the thinking here, Dale? How's it looking?
It's looking rather good. We've got one game left on Saturday. If we win, we're in the playoffs, which is fantastic because it's in our own hands, as we like to say. It doesn't matter what anybody else does except the team that we play, of course.
So just remind us who you have on Saturday.
Yeah, we're playing Oldham. We're in a good place. We beat Tranmere on Saturday, who are a club in the playoffs and a very good team. But we beat them with 10 men as well. I mean, we had the 10 men. So there's a great spirit in our camp since we changed coach. And Jimmy Ball stepped up. And, I'm very positive about it. If we get to the playoffs, then I think we have every chance of winning them.
Fantastic. Final one from Phil on Twitter. What's on Dale Vince's bank holiday barbecue? We've just had a bank holiday. And we've got one it's about 2 weeks away yet. So it was a wash. It was freezing. It was so couldn't have had a barbecue.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I'm a big fan of the shiitake mushroom burger from the Devil's Kitchen. And that's not just some kind of I don't know what you might call it, reverse conflict of interest, because it's not a conflict. It's not that. But I'm a big fan of it. I like those. I like corn on the cob. Big mushrooms with olive oil and soy sauce, actually, as a kind of brush on dressing.
That's a stunner. Yeah,
I mean,
it just feeds into the argument that we've said so many times. When people eat meat, what they're eating is often the additional flavors added to the meat. Not the actual meat. It's I said this before. Somebody once said to me, if you had a piece of raw steak or basic steak with nothing added to it at all, you'd wonder what the hell it was, because invariably, even salt, pepper, sugar, all manner of things that go into much of the meat that is eaten, is tainted with other flavorings, and those flavorings can be added to things like mushrooms anyway. So
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, like big slabs of red pepper, asparagus, all kinds of plants on a barbie. Actually, are really fantastic. It's that kind of singeing thing, isn't it? That's what I like about barbecue food.
the singe.
The singe.
That's like your wrestling name.
Wrestling. The singe.
And here he is in the red corner. The singe. It would work. Nice. Dale, have a cracking week, and we'll speak next week.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. See you later.
That's it for this episode. Don't forget to follow this podcast from your podcast provider. You therefore get each new episode automatically. Leave a review there as well. Really important bit. Follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince, and the same on LinkedIn too. And we'll see you in a week.
Zero carbon.
East of